Okay, everybody ready?
Just a minute. We're live. Just so you know, we're on the air, everybody. Okay, Judy.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is the May meeting for the Industrial Development Association. We are today located at Jones Memorial Hospital, and after our meeting, we will hear some information from Jones Memorial staff about how economic development affects them and what their needs are, and we will have a tour of the facility. So it's a big day for us to be out of our normal environment. All members of the IDA are present either in the room or on the screen. Rachel is on the screen. The rest of us are here in the room. We also have a guest with us, Jim
Helms.
Jim Helms I'm sorry, Jim. Jim Helms, the CEO of the hospital. Is Terry joining us?
No.
Jim? Okay, good. All right, the first order of business then is to ask if there are any conflicts of interest on today's agenda from any of the members. Hearing none, we'll proceed with the approval of the minutes of the April 11th meeting. I have a motion on that, and we'll look at them and discuss.
So moved.
Thank you. Second, John?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or corrections on that? Okay. If not, we'll vote to approve those. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. That is passed. Thank you. Okay, the next order is to look at the treasurer's report. The abstract report is first. Expenses. So we'll look at that, and we'll seek a motion to approve so we can discuss.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Doug. Doug makes the motion. Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Jerry. Okay, are there questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Rich, we're not hearing you. Are you voting?
I don't know if I can vote.
Yeah, you can still vote. Yes, you can still vote.
Since I read these bylaws, it almost looked like you have to be there, but
Now,
I'll say
the IDA has passed another resolution that the remote, you can actually pay, as long as you have a good reason, which we assume that you have one, you included a vote, yes.
Yeah, okay, aye.
Thank you. Okay. All right, then moving on to the financial summary. We'll entertain a motion on that.
So moved, Judy.
Thank you, Doug. Second, John. Thank you. Okay, we'll look at it for a second and then see if there are any questions. Okay, there seem to be no questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is passed.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, on to our regular building maintenance report. It's not this building, though.
Now, unfortunately, I do have some updates. I have two things. One is unbeknownst to maybe the board, we've been getting free internet since we've been there through the cell tower, through the ACIDA, and it's not functioning correctly, and it costs us $3,500 to fix it. And so I'm suggesting we move to Armstrong. Armstrong came in yesterday and gave us a proposal at $60 a month to hook us up to internet, and it'd be high speed. What's happening is the speed is minimal, and it sometimes doesn't work, right, Barb? And we should be paying for some internet service anyway,
That's a good
so,
price. That's less than I'm paying
yeah,
now.
no comment. So anyways,
Is this
so
for both buildings?
just our building, the county already has internet to both buildings. This is only for our building.
Okay,
So the county already pays their own internet for both buildings. So it's for basically our use.
okay.
Is the other one functional or is it totally out?
It's only operating at 8 megabytes per second. So that's why we had trouble at the last meeting doing the 2 videos. So it's just not, and it doesn't work all the time. It's intermittent. Every once in a while it doesn't work.
Any costs associated with keeping it as backup?
No, it'll still be there.
Good idea.
So we're not going to shut it off, but it'll still be available. It's just that it's not enough speed for what we're trying to do. So this would be 100 megabytes, 100 megabytes per second. So it's more than what we need. We can get by with 8. 100 will be amazing.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
The other thing is the furnace in OFA. Noticed that Steve noticed the bearing was going bad, and we've got a price to replace the bearing at $1,800, and I suggest we do a new furnace for $6,600 because it's almost a 20-year-old boiler. No reason to put $1,800 into a boiler and make it go out in the next couple of years.
Mhm.
So just letting the board know, unless there's an objection, we'll replace the
We
furnace.
need to get bids on that.
I already have. We're fine.
Kind of boiler. Boilers are
It's a
usually
furnace,
good
excuse
for
me. It's a
40
furnace.
years.
It's a furnace.
Is a boiler?
No, it's a furnace.
Furnace, okay.
I apologize.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
We
I
have
got a boiler in my house.
We have boilers in
that's
our
40 years
we have boilers at our other facility. Yeah.
old. Okay.
But unfortunately, John, the newer boilers don't last like the old ones.
Yeah, I'll agree with
I hate
that.
to tell you that.
No, it seems
Craig, how
like,
many bids did we get? Who are they from?
Just 2, Nick Shabita and Hilliard.
will this include air conditioning?
We already updated the air conditioning.
Okay,
Last year we put a condenser on it.
okay.
I know Hilliard's a county company. Does the other one reside in Allegheny County?
They're an OEM.
Who's a low bid?
Nick Shibata. They do much better work. Hilliard has been a problem working with.
Okay, we need a motion on both those items.
Yeah, it'd probably be fine to approve both of those. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do the first one first, the internet. So we'll take a motion to approve the plan to fix that as stated by Craig. Thank you, Doug.
Second.
Thank you very much. We are ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. That is passed. Next would be the furnace. And a motion on that. And, okay, thanks, Doug. And second? Randy? Okay,
Second.
thank you.
I just have a what was the
Sure.
price on that new furnace?
6,600
For brand new install? That's
installed and take away the old one. Yes,
The whole thing? Okay.
And there's a lot of rooms, a lot of
it's a big building.
ducts and
Yeah.
stuff like that to do too.
Yeah.
No, it's the right price.
Okay,
do good
ready to
work.
vote?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is passed. Okay, anything else on building maintenance, Craig?
No.
Okay, on our agenda, it has an executive session. Do we need to have that?
I don't think so.
Okay,
The only thing we have on the bylaws there we need to talk about.
okay. All right, moving on then to action items. We have the local development corporation bylaws to look at and approve. Craig, do you want to just make some comments about that?
Yeah, Rich has reviewed those a couple times. I've sent them out to the board twice. We still have one minor thing that Randy said he's brought up, which we ought to discuss. The reason to have an LDC is there's lots of things that the IDA cannot do. There's 2 things particularly we want it for, and there's probably a third as well. We're going to be getting I mentioned before, EPA grant for a brownfield study, and it has to go through a 5013C. And then we also if we want to start up any kind of a grant fund slash loan fund, we have to have an LDC. And I'm pretty sure I can get about $500,000 to do that. So having an LDC gives us much more broadband things that we can do. And also we can help the new EDO as well when they do, if they have any money that comes through grants, we can funnel it through the LDC. And this was written originally, a long time ago, but it's been revised dramatically. I think now it's really where it ought to be. There's one thing that Randy wanted to bring up about it. Randy?
The question I have is on section 3, the terms of service. It talks about removing a director.
Right.
And that the directors serve at the pleasure of the agency, which is the IDA.
Right.
It earlier says that all IDA members are members of the board.
Right.
So that's a little confusing to me as to how the LDC, this group, with an LDC hat, could remove somebody from the LDC when it's in the bylaws that if that person's still a member of the IDA, they're a member of the LDC. I mean, I think it needs a little tweaking here.
Yeah, I'll talk to our lawyer, but I would guess that we should probably take that out or tweak it somehow, because it doesn't make sense that they can somehow remove them if they're all the members of the IDA are on the board.
Yeah, it contradicts what's
Right.
over your state.
I have a question too. On Article 5 in Section 2, talks about the chief financial officer.
Right.
And that it cannot be a member of the board.
Right.
So who takes on that responsibility? Is that Barb?
That'll be Barb.
Barb, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're not hiring anybody that you're asking. Yeah.
No, but I know we changed her job title.
Yeah.
And,
She would
and
be she would
responsibilities.
be able to fulfill that. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay,
Can we pass that pending just that one change?
yeah, let's just make sure the change is in the minutes.
Yeah. If we could pass that as a resolution, we approve the bylaws pending that one modification. Because that way we can get it, because we have to file this. This is not just, even though we approve it, that's what the problem was before. The board approved it, never filed it. So they never actually got the actual corporation done.
I don't know if I have to mention this or not. There's one place, I believe that there's still one word that needs to be changed.
Yeah, Rich said there's a couple of typos in there. We'll fix those.
Okay, and then we don't have to deal with that.
I'll send out a revised one with all the typos fixed.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. We are ready for a motion, I believe.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Randy.
So the motion is to approve and file the corporation.
With the change.
Right.
Is
For the
there a
changes.
charge to file for the corporation?
$1,500.
Okay.
There's nothing free there at state.
Okay, so Randy moved, John seconded. Any other discussion on it?
This probably needs to be roll call.
Yeah, I think it probably
Yes.
should be.
Yes. Okay, we don't have a list
No.
on it. Okay, I will just go through
Just
it.
go right around the room.
Okay, I believe I'm first, I, Randy,
Randy Shaler, aye.
Doug,
Doug says aye.
okay,
John Ricky, aye.
okay, and Rich Yule,
Aye.
okay, thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you, and I
Yeah,
just want to
thank
say
you.
thank you to Craig and Randy for all the work they've done.
Rich
terms
is the one that reviewed
I
everything.
am,
One of you guys.
I need some coffee.
Because Rich did a really thorough review.
Rich did an excellent job, and I know it was painstaking, Rich, and you have always done that, so we appreciate it very much.
Rich, I also appreciate that because you really did look through it with a fine tooth comb.
He did. So, okay, we've had the roll call vote, and we've all voted aye, and I think we're ready to go with that then.
Yep, good. We'll have it filed.
Okay, thank you.
I'll send out the revised last copy with all the edits.
Okay. And we have some old business items to discuss, some updates from Craig. Can you share a little bit about all of those items, Craig?
Well, the Allegheny County Strategic Plan Economic Development, they've hired Ashley Smith. She's going to be the new head of the Economic Development area for the county, and we're meeting this afternoon to discuss that EDO potentially forming economic development organization. And once we have anything, Judy and I will report back to the committee here. So they're making progress. Any questions on that? Okay. On the CARES Act, we've closed that out. There's still paperwork for Zimmerman to actually do that. Mike Zimmerman to actually do all the full closeout, but we've got our last draw in, so we will have spent the full $1 million. So the last draw actually did get some money to the IDA for some of our administrative costs, about $10,000 as well. So that should be finished. The micro enterprise grant, we still have another draw coming, and he's still working with all those companies. I have not heard anything back of companies that he has not been successful in working with so far, but I will. I'll let you know.
Okay. And is there potentially another round?
Yes, this grant is, unless we get an extension, will be finished up this year, and then we wouldn't apply for another one. So as soon as you get one done, you can apply for another one.
Great. It's brought a lot of good business to Allegheny County.
Well, it's really helped a lot of small business.
Yeah.
Between these two grants, we've helped almost 30 companies already, and it'll be another 10 to 15.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, that's great. With expansion and creating new business.
Right.
So. Okay. How about the Gateway Center?
I talked to Tom Windus, and he said they're just waiting for SHPO. They had to do a short report as to the archaeology on that site. Once that's done, they'll go ahead and be able to do the work on the site. They're still working with the DEC, so it should be maybe this fall. That's the plan. I know he's can't wait to get on the road.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. It's good that he's anxious. Okay. How about clean energy?
I do have nothing else on the Wellsville project. I don't know when that's going to be closing. We've actually done all the work that we have to do, but I know they're still working with the town and finalizing their permits. And then there are potentially 2 new projects, one in Amity and one in town of Ward. So they've reached out to me. I do not have any financial applications at this time, but looks like there's 2 small projects coming forward. The larger projects, Alley Cat Wind and Northland, are both going to start, but not till next year. So the large projects will not start this year. It'll start next year.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg on those? Okay. And how about Great Lakes?
I have no updates from Cornell on that one. I know they've met as well to try to figure out how to extend the sewer line out to the plant, but they're looking to get some federal or state funds to do that, because the plant is functioning for pre-treatment, but it's really not at the right level to actually dump it into the creek at this time. So they will need to have the sewer line extended to make that work for somebody else if they're going to use it for food processing.
Is there any further information coming back from Kathy Young?
Not at this time. No. I haven't heard anything else from Cornell. I know they've had a couple people interested, but nobody that's signed up.
Okay.
There was an article in the Times Herald. Did you see that?
I didn't see it. Bob Clark did talk to me, and he talked to the
like a week ago.
supervisor. Yeah, I'm sure did he say anything else than what I said?
No.
Yeah, because we couldn't tell him much. I told him the same thing, that there's no eminent person in there, but we're still trying to shop it a little bit. But it's hard because they've not moved out of the building yet either.
So they're totally finished with the building? No.
Not till the end of the year.
Oh, okay, good. And the last old business was
I have put the potential sale of that Friendship property on our website, and I've forwarded it to the people that said they might be interested in buying it. So, and by our next board meeting, we'll know if anybody really wants to buy that Friendship land.
I think we should have a sealed written bid on that, just to, make sure there's no, appearance of favoring either party, because, we've talked to both of them.
Sure.
So rather than having those emailed or,
I'll revise
give it to us
that
ahead of time, let's open them right at the meeting.
I'll revise that so that they have to give them a sealed bid. I'll revise that very simply.
Okay. I just think it's better for us, just
That's
so
fine.
there's no appearance of anything going on.
I understand. I'll do that. I'll revise that. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yep. The one other old business update is I didn't update, we had the Indus public hearing on Monday. And village mayor Randy Shaler showed up. He was my only person. And other than that, we had the public hearing and it went fine because no one else attended. So there were no comments.
There was unanimous support. By the
Yes, there was.
Imagine that.
That was a really tough crowd. Just wanted to let you
I
know.
was going to
So,
ask if Mr. Shaler had any, any
And we-
good comments.
yes, and we have actually, we're almost through the seeker, and we've not anything unusual come out of the seeker. So I think we'll be fine to approve that at the next board meeting.
Great. Things are moving along. Thank you for your support, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
Okay, new business. Our new business pertains to Jones Memorial Hospital, and our guest, Jim Helms, the CEO, is going to talk a little bit about economic development and how it pertains to the hospital and what your needs are. I know there are needs that pertain to economic development, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. Making sure
Jim, can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
I'm going to need to leave while you're speaking.
Hey, who's got to leave, Randy?
Yes.
Can I just bring something up real quick then before we start? I just have to say, I know that most of the maintenance that, I think, is it Steve that does the maintenance at our
Yeah,
building?
Steve Thorpe, yeah, yes.
And he does a great job, and we're lucky to have him. And I think he purchases most of the stuff that he needs from probably the Belmont Hardware.
Yes, he
or
does.
Probably
Almost-
locally.
Almost often the hardware.
And I know we can't, make sure every single thing is purchased in Allegheny County. Can't even get every single thing you can. But we have qualified plumbers, heaters, electricians, if there's roofers, if there's a job that we need to do that's several $1,000s, like this heating job. I don't want someone from Cat County doing it. That's just my opinion. If I can get somebody from Allegheny County, I want to work hard to try to do that. I want the furnace to come from Allegheny County. I mean, we work for the taxpayers here, in my mind. And I am not, I voted yes. I'm not gonna, I'm not asking us to change that, for the new furnace. But in the future, I'd just like to say, I would like to try to spend our money here. So that's all I wanted to say before Randy left. And I don't think we need a resolution or anything like that. Maybe we do, but just wanted to say that before he left, so.
Well, again, just so you know, Rich, we try to use companies always in Allegheny County first. It's just that we try to also make sure that we have the best companies do our work.
Well, Craig, with all due respect, there are plenty of companies that are in Allegheny County that install.
We have
furnaces.
used
It's
almost,
not that hard of a job.
we have almost used almost all of them, and I can talk to you offline why we have not used a couple of them.
Yeah, okay.
Jim, I think the floor is yours.
well, great.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for joining me here at the Jones Memorial, and look forward to giving you a tour of our facility, not just the recent changes to the organization, but to show you some of the other key pieces to our hospital here in Allegheny County. I think I know pretty much everybody in the room, and not just in case, not everybody. Jim Helms, President and CEO of Jones Memorial, now for, hard to believe, almost just shy of 3 years. But I've been here at Jones for over 10 years in various different roles. And really happy to speak about Jones Memorial, where we've been, where we are right now, and likely where we're headed. Talking a little bit about our strategic plan. And what does this mean to Allegheny County?
Jim, before you start, we should just introduce Mike Healy, who's Allegheny County legislator that's in the room as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Judy. And of course, I'm always all about the veterans too, and I want to point out that Mr. Helms is a career Army veteran.
He definitely is.
Thank him for his service.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. So without further ado, and I think, Rich, you should be able to see my screen. Let me know if it's not. Just wanted to start out first with, I start out first by just talking about what's our mission here at Jones Memorial. We just recently, as a board of directors, recast our mission and our vision statement, as well as our values here at the organization. So sharing with you and all those viewers of what the mission statement is, focused around improving the quality of life for our community. That's what we're here for. And our community is not simply Wellsville, New York, just simply because the hospital is located here. We take this very seriously. We know that we're the only full-service acute hospital in all of Allegheny County, which is a very large catchment area. And we want to continue to strive to do that. Raising quality of life, it's critical to us. But we also want to be the leading hospital, as part of our vision statement. Leading hospital not just for patients, but it first starts with our associates and our medical staff. Our associates, we need to have, we want them to want to be here, part of the team, and our medical staff. If they want to be here and they choose Jones Memorial, then that's going to lead to higher quality and higher patient satisfaction. So sharing those with you just to kick off, what about Jones? What does it mean to be Jones Memorial? Some of this data that I'm showing right now is a little bit dated, but not too far off as far as numbers go. This is an excerpt we used during our not too in the distant past, the north of $2 million successful capital campaign that we did as part of this transformation. This is some of the data we had shared in that. It's from late of 2022. It really hasn't changed dramatically as of yet, but it will be over the next couple of years. But just as so you can have a sense of what Jones Memorial is. Jones Memorial is a sole community hospital. And when you think about rural hospitals and sole community hospital, you might just think small, treat basic ailments, and then of course being part of the University of Rochester Medical Center, using our partner for everything else. Not exactly accurate. The goal is to keep all care local if it's absolutely possible, that we can do it at a high level of quality and safety. To that end, you can see from an outpatient visit numbers, just shy of 300,000 visits in that year came through Jones Memorial, whether it be through the hospital for medical imaging, for lab tests, any other outpatient visits that you could think of. Over 12,000, now we've been pushing close to 13,000 emergency room visits per year come through Jones Memorial. We have over 400 births a year. We generally bounce anywhere between 375 to 425 births a year coming through the hospital. And I want to point out that labor and delivery is a cornerstone to Jones Memorial. We're the only labor and delivery for 45 minutes on good roads in any direction. And we could give you a list of situations where if Jones Memorial was not here and able to provide that service, outcomes would not have been nearly as positive as it turned out to be. We partner with Oshai Children's, we partner with Golisano Children's, Buffalo, Rochester, respectively. We have actually the staff members, the associate members of 400 on this slide is now outdated. We actually employ approximately 465 individuals at the hospital, various levels of employment, whether it be full-time to part-time. It runs at about an equivalent of about 270 full-time equivalents, FTEs. So that's a lot of employment that comes through Jones Memorial. Not simply just here at the hospital, but through all of our outpatient services also around the county and beyond Allegheny County. And we're licensed for 49 hospital beds. So transformation and modernization. So this is the image of the new hospital that you now see when you come up to the building. It was pretty interesting. Yesterday, I had a visit from one of my colleagues from the University of Rochester. And the last time she had been down here, she only remembered the old building. And it was interesting because she was instrumental in writing the $17 million grant that helped fund this transformation. So she was pretty wowed to step out of her car. She never got a chance to see the construction due to COVID and lack of traveling. She just basically went from A to B, almost like stepping through a time machine. So what we did here is, as part of the plan is, this is the medical village that sits atop the original 1993 addition to the hospital. In this medical village, we brought into the hospital the medical staff that see patients inside the hospital on a regular basis, but have outpatient services. So you can be seen in the hospital, but not be an inpatient, not staying overnight. And why this is important is when you think of things like obstetrics, pediatrics especially, when they have to be able to round on moms and babies, it can be very disruptive because of course moms and babies don't like that necessarily stick to a schedule of when they have to deliver and when something's an emergency. So even if you're only a few blocks away, if you have to come to the hospital and now you've disrupted your entire outpatient schedule, all of the patients that were scheduled to see those doctors or those midwives for the day, all need to now be rescheduled. And you're not going to be able to be rescheduled tomorrow because there's already a backlog of visits. So now you could be weeks out to get your visit. Now they can be in their office conducting business under their outpatient services, still be taking care of patients on an inpatient status because it's a flight of stairs, one elevator ride to either the labor and delivery unit or even the OR if needed. Other professions that are located inside the hospital that care for patients in the hospital is orthopedics and general surgery as well, so that they can round on patients. So it's important to try to get the most efficient for our medical staff because that leads to additional access for patients. If you think about all the lost visits, the lost schedule that was created by having them offsite, it mitigates that. So it creates access. They're more productive, patients are happier. That's a lot about the medical building. On the front of the building, what you see now is our fixed MRI, and it's actually a tower. And when we do that on the tour here, you'll see what this means. So it doesn't look nearly as beautiful as all the limestone and all the glass on the front of the building, but it definitely changes the way we deliver medicine here in Allegheny County. The first floor in here is actually the MRI, which originally was we had MRI services, but it was in a trailer. And probably many people in this room, including myself, has had to have MRI services at one point or another. And I used to summarize our old services. We had great technicians, we had good technology, and we had a poor patient experience all wrapped up in one. Now what we have, we've taken those great technicians, we've brought on great technology, expandable technology with a great patient experience, all here at your Jones Memorial Hospital. In fact, what we've been able to do is then expand the types of tests we can do here at Jones. I clearly remember when we had our trailer and I had to explain to a patient that because they needed a prostate MRI and they had to go and travel to have that MRI. Well, we had an MRI sitting right here at the hospital explaining that why the technology doesn't work. This new unit we have, the newest MRI in the University of Rochester fleet, can do all of that, and it's expandable as well. So what we do is we work with our medical staff, figure out what kind of services or orders they're making for this type of technology, and make sure we can do those tests here if it's a high enough volume. Additionally, because we're all on the same electronic medical record, all of these images, whether they be through the MRI, through our CT, or even just simply X-ray, are all read by board certified radiologists at the medical center, underneath the medical center umbrella. So whether you're having an MRI just down the hall from them up in Rochester, or having your MRI here, the furthest affiliate from the medical center, it's the exact same technology and the exact same physicians that are reading that. So that's important, especially since we just brought back, for example, mammography. We have board certified radiologists reading those mammography images at the medical center in real time, or is no slower than or any different time if you're up there in Rochester. So that's really important.
Jim, are those specialists like the mammography? Those are people that specialize in that, and
Yeah, okay. Mammography. When I say board certified, that actually is a specialty. So mammography, great question, Rich. Mammography is a specialty, so they would be looking at just those. There are other radiologists that are generalists, and they'd be looking at some of the X-rays, even some of the MRIs. But some things, like the prostate, for example, those would be specialists.
Okay.
Great question, but if you think about it, now with all this technology, we can do this where 10 years ago we couldn't do it because you would have had to have that specialist sitting right here at Jones to do that. And of course, that was never going to be able to happen.
Right.
Yep. So additionally to this tower, underneath I'll go to second floor, The second floor is a future expansion for a sleep lab that we want to be able to do. New York State was gracious enough to let us make what they call a shell space. Normally, the Department of Health doesn't allow us, most organizations, hospitals, or training hospitals, to spend capital dollars on space that's not immediately being used. But they recognize that because it sits atop an MRI, we were never going to be able to expand that once the MRI went live, or we'd have to shut the MRI down to do the vertical expansion. So they allowed us to build this shell space. So we intend to move a sleep lab, expand our sleep lab to that second floor, and then create clinic space on a third floor, which opens directly adjacent to our infusion center here at Jones Memorial. Underneath this tower,
Jim, could I ask
Yes,
you a
Mike.
question? Just for a second there, back up to the MRI tower. Now, you said people in Rochester will be able to read that, but also any other medical facility across the nation, or do they have access to that if you had to consult with another specialist, like at Cleveland Clinic or someplace?
it's a great question, Mike. So because we're on an electronic medical record called Epic, and that was also a change we made. This was all part of the New York State transformation grants for healthcare transformation grant. An earlier version of that transformation grant, we were able to change our electronic medical record from what was called Meditech to Epic. The reason that's important is because the medical center, the University of Rochester Medical Center, Strong, Highland, and others, were all on that medical record. Because we're on the same medical record now, if you get an image done here and it's read at the medical center, and then say you have to follow up with a specialist, maybe there's a specialist in Hornell at one of our affiliate hospitals at St. James, they can see your medical record, your images, real time. Additionally, if you're in an emergency here, say you're having we have a motor vehicle accident and we have to take a CT out of the emergency room. If we want to consult somebody at the medical center, somebody in trauma or stroke, for example, if we're treating stroke, because we are a certified stroke center, they can read those real time at the medical center and be giving consults right here to Jones. Additionally, if you're going to somewhere outside the system, Cleveland Clinic was Mike's example, we can get those images to them. If they're on Epic, they can get it real time. If they're not on Epic, we can integrate it as well.
Thank you.
It changes the way we deliver quality healthcare here in Allegheny County. So underneath this tower, what you'll see is, I'll go to my next slide, the third part of this transformation was actually our operating rooms. This footprint on the right-hand side, you'll see, that is the footprint of the MRI tower. And what we did is we modernized, relocated, and improved the workflow for what is called central sterile. So central sterile is where we take all of the instruments that we use throughout the organization, but largely in the operating room, sterilize, process, and get back into what we would call circulation or use again. It used to be on the other side of the hospital. So if you were a central sterile tech, you would have to take every tray that came out dirty, cart it across the hospital, process it, bring it back across the hospital again. Now it's adjacent to the operating room, where it really should be from an operational standpoint. So that's efficiency. And we can now process operating equipment, certain instruments that we were never able to do before. We have what we would call a cart wash, for example, in there. So instead of hand washing, for example, a wheelchair or a larger piece of equipment, it literally looks like a miniature car wash that we can go through there and wash and start to sterilize. So it's pretty amazing. But probably more importantly are these 4 dark spots that you see at the center of the screen. We were licensed for 4 operating rooms. 2 were majors, 1 was a minor, and 1 was functioning more like a procedural room. We now have 4 modern major ORs here in Allegheny County. Pretty much capable, as long as we have the equipment, to do any surgery that comes our way, from a general surgeon, GYN, ENT, urology, whatever it might be. Additionally, they're expandable also to things like in the future, if we start changing things like robotics. This is important because if we only had 2 major ORs and we have orthopedics here and GYN or even general surgery, they could be competing for those ORs if they have emergency or urgent surgeries. Now we have 4 majors. It doesn't matter what OR they go into. It also helps our turn time. the medical village, the ability to do with the technology for imaging.
Steve Thorpe.
What this does and the ability to get into these ORs and have OR time are critical to our recruitment of surgeons and specialists in this area. They will only come if not only do they have the patients, but the patients are important, of course, but they won't do it if they can't get OR time and if they don't have the right technology. Now, when any of those University of Rochester surgeons, specialists come here to Jones, they're stepping into this exact same technology and the same modern OR that they would if they were up at Strong Hospital, for example. And that's very important because as we partner with our team up at the University of Rochester, like these Strong, Highland, those tertiary quaternary centers, they're always largely over 100% capacity. What they want, what we want, is to keep as much local care here in Allegheny County. And that's important. They will help us with the technology and the quality so that we can keep you local. We do not need to be sending an appendectomy, for example, something that we should be able to do bread and butter surgery here at Jones, too Strong to get done. They don't have the capacity for it, and you could be waiting there. The goal is to keep you local. And that's what our communities want. They don't want to have to drive 90 minutes, 2 hours to get care they can get right here at Jones. So some additional progress that we've done over the last years. Maybe, I hope everybody's heard about our expansion into Andover. We took a very outdated practice there, modernized that, turned that into what they call an Article 28. Article 28 is a complicated way of saying a New York State licensed site. Has a lot of requirements to be an Article 28 and a licensed site. But we changed Andover, converted a grocery store to a primary care, what we call a rural health clinic. Jones Memorial's clinics are largely what they call rural health clinics. It's a designation. I won't get into all the technicalities, but what it does is it helps with that designation. There's quality requirements that we have to abide by to have that designation, but with that comes additional reimbursement for our services from Medicare and Medicaid. So that's very important because that thing brings more capital, more dollars back to Allegheny County so we can continue to reinvest that in healthcare.
Jim, does the hospital make money on Medicaid, Medicare, or like, are we reimbursed enough to, pay our expenses for procedures and patient?
That's one of the challenges in New York, well, not New York State, that's one of the challenges across the country is in healthcare. On the expense side of the equation, we are suffering from inflation just like any other industry. And I would argue even to a larger extent because of the shortages in staffing and of course, the cost of pharmaceuticals. What we don't have a lot of control over because all of our revenue is contracted. And we have a large percentage of our revenue comes from Medicare and Medicaid. And those are dictated of what those increases are going to be. They're not negotiated, unlike if we were to negotiate, for example, with Blue Cross. So short answer to your question, Rich, is no. The cost of the reimbursement from especially Medicaid and depending on the services, Medicare, those reimbursements do not cover the cost of healthcare. In fact, some studies will show that in Medicaid, we get approximately 62 cents on a dollar for cost. So there are ways that New York State is very progressive in how they try to fill that gap. It doesn't fill it entirely. Jones Memorial is what they call a disproportionate share hospital as well, meaning we get a disproportionate share compared to other hospitals of Medicaid or uninsured community members here. So there are pool dollars that come back to us for that. Not necessarily enough, but that's where we have to negotiate with our commercial payers. So you want to talk about the business aspect of how this becomes complicated. Now I'm negotiating with the Blue Cross, the Univeras, you name it, any of your commercial insurance carriers that you may have as an employee to an organization. I need them to raise their rates so that the Jones can make a profit on those areas that then covers the shortfall on the Medicaid and Medicare sides.
What's a percentage, would you say, if you had in a typical year of Medicaid, Medicare to private pay?
See, Jones is currently running about 62% government funded.
So that's 62% of
All revenue, of all
what we do,
services.
we lose money on.
Yes, so
Okay.
the other percentage is the commercial side where we have to, then, make up the difference.
Well, Jim, while we're on that, what happens if someone comes in and they don't have any insurance at all and they're not eligible for Medicaid, Medicare?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the things we have, getting a little off topic, but I'm glad to answer these questions. One of the things we do here at Jones Memorial, and we've done this actually for a number of years very successfully, is we implemented what we call financial counseling office here at Jones. So any patient comes in, whether they come in through the outpatient side or they come in as an inpatient, if we identify that they are either uninsured or underinsured, sometimes that's also a problem, those counselors will get with that individual and see what they can do about enrolling them in either if they qualify for Medicaid or on the exchange. And I'm very proud of the work they do. I could give you a laundry list of success stories of patients that would be staring $30,000 to $50,000 of out-of-pocket costs for something, an unexpected health occurrence, that this team has been able to help get insurance so that they don't leave here with that. Because ultimately, if they're underinsured or uninsured, it's probably going to turn into bad debt anyway. And that's certainly not going to help the patient, and it's not going to help the hospital. So this team does a great job of getting that insurance. In fact, one of your highest Medicaid populations in healthcare is actually in labor and delivery. When you think about the demographics there, you got young families, they're maybe not be established yet. You quite often can have much of your labor and delivery, a higher percentage in that service line is Medicaid versus any other we have. And we used to have babies discharged from the hospital with self-pay, and that should almost never happen because they should always automatically qualify for at least Medicaid. So instead of getting $0 of the cost, you at least get 62 cents on the dollar, and you get credit for that Medicaid visit. For years now, we have not discharged an uninsured baby from Jones because they identify them, especially if they get to the hospital. But if they don't get to the hospital, even when they're getting their prenatal care, and get them set up. So we work very hard. There's a team of 3 individuals that work very hard to make sure we try to cover every patient that comes into the hospital.
What about aftercare for the baby? That's included in
That
all
would
of
be
it?
included, yes,
Yeah.
because once they become enrolled, and it would look 90 days retro, and it would stay with them too after discharge. So, great questions. Please stop me as you have those. I'll answer them the best I can. So we expanded to Andover. We did expand. We have medical practices now at Alfred. Yeah, and we're actually in the middle of converting that from a non-Article 28 to Article 28 site so that we can then make that a rural health clinic. Again, to at least get as much revenue as possible out of a primary care clinic. Primary care clinics generally will lose money. That's part of the challenge with healthcare. But then what the idea is that eventually they would result in things like medical imaging and labs and such that will actually then bring revenue back into the hospital. And then we have I say Wellsville primary care, because what we did with the practices that moved into that medical village, they came out of Main Street, the Main Street Women's and Children's Center. We backfilled that with those providers that were actually over at Martin Street and are still looking to even fill more, filled that with medical staff there as well. So we have a primary care site just down the street that's already Article 28 qualified, because it was Article 28 before the OBs and pediatrics all moved out of there. That's important because we were actually recruiting for those primary care providers, family medicine and internal medicine, before we even would have had them moved, because we knew we had the space for them coming up. And they were great partners and worked out of the Martin Street location until we found them that. Beyond Allegheny County and recent,
Yeah. What about the Belvedere satellite there? What do you do over there in that little building?
that's primary care as well, family and internal medicine.
Okay, because the county's looking to put a sewer lift station in there, so you have sewage.
Yeah, we're
Water to follow.
on a well right now. Well and
So
something. Yeah.
possibly water, we'll see.
Yeah.
Politics allows.
Yep. So beyond Allegheny County, what we have is we do have medical oncology and rheumatology clinic in Olean, New York, as well as an infusion center in Olean, New York. that sits right on State Street. Was put it there a couple of years ago, and it is full. It is really to the brim. And in fact, we just recently recruited another rheumatologist who will be spending some part-time there, as well as while it's in the future, what you'll see in the next slides, that we're actually building another infusion and rheumatology center in Steuben County. Additionally, what I don't have on the slide, we've had it for quite some time, is we do have a women's health center in Steuben County. It sits in the medical office building next to our partner St. James Hospital, because St. James does not have labor and delivery. They don't have labor and delivery. It would make no sense for them to have obstetricians or GYN or pediatricians for that matter. So we have a women's health center there right next in partnership with them to be able to provide that service to that community. And those deliveries then come here to Jones Memorial. So that's sort of where we are. Where are we going? What is in our strategic plan? You know, the strategic plan, if I boil this all down, is to continue to expand primary care. We take very seriously that Jones is part of that three-legged stool that builds communities. If you're going to build and sustain a community, you need healthcare, you need education, and you need jobs. We take our leg of that stool very seriously, and we also recognize that it's our responsibility as a healthcare system to continually raise the bar on the quality of life in Allegheny County. Does that mean we're going to cure everything in Allegheny County? We're going to make everybody healthy? We know that's not that fact. But what we can do and what we're charged to do is increase their quality of life by providing the care they need where they are. And this is important because the healthcare has changed dramatically since I said I've been here at Jones for 10 years. I've been in healthcare over 20 years now in rural health. And the pendulum has swung. When I first came into healthcare, it was all about how many patients do you have when you're inpatient. That's how you made money. Now, the pendulum swung. It's not about inpatient. Inpatient is critical. You have to have it. You have to have it, especially when it's needed. But 85% of the revenues that come into Jones Memorial comes from outpatient services. 15% come from inpatient now. That's a dramatic change from 20 years ago. But it's because we know it's healthier for you, our community, to get you to be treated in an outpatient setting. Our goal is to keep you from having to come to the hospital, to keep you healthy. That's the dramatic change. That's what raises the quality of life, about wellness.
That includes your outpatient surgeries?
Yes, includes outpatient. In fact, great comment, Mike, because not that long ago, if you were to get a knee replacement, you would be here at the hospital for 3 days getting physical therapy, and it would have been an inpatient surgery. Knee replacements now are an outpatient surgery. You should be able to go home. I know.
That is so strange. Sorry.
Yeah, everybody, after I say it, everybody just starts shaking their heads.
I just had ACL surgery, and I wouldn't want to go home the same day I know my son had.
Yeah, but the technology
Well, you're old, it might not.
allows for someone to go home within 24 hours. And believe it or not, the same is now for hips replacements.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh.
that hard to believe?
It
It's
is.
amazing. But even at Jones, we've embraced this new technology, and our orthopedics team here does anterior approach orthopedic hip replacements. That's the cutting edge. I mean, that's really something to be proud of for your hospital, to be doing anterior approach hip replacements. That's their approach at Highland Hospital or the other large orthopedic centers. That's what they do, and that's what our team has learned, and that's what they implemented here. So I'm really proud of them for that. So it's to continue to grow access in primary care. That's critical to us. Now that we have the transformation project essentially complete, is to capitalize on that. Continue to grow our surgical center. We have the capacity now we need to fill it. And leverage what we call 340B. And we'll get into the technicalities of what 340B is. Here, Judy, sort of last. Rich probably smiling as well because it's extremely complicated. But the long and short of it is about leveraging outpatient services for pharmaceuticals. Hence why you're seeing these infusion centers being opened up by Jones Memorial, because we're a 340B eligible hospital. And that's a way we can make some profit on those to help offset the losses on whether it be Medicaid services or other loss leading type services that there's just no profit in. So a lot going on the strategic plan. So our future, what's underway right now, we are expanding our rheumatology, and we're bringing neurology back to the region. There is no neurology services in our, what we call the Southern region. Southern region in the University of Rochester world means our partners with Noyes Hospital in Dansville, St. James and Cornell, and Jones here in Wellsville. We, Jones, will have a neurology center at the medical office building next to St. James. It'll be partnered with rheumatology, which we already have a small presence there, but we want to be able to grow it. And we're building another infusion center there. So Jones Memorial will have an infusion center in Cattaraugus County, Allegheny County, and Steuben County, creating access for populations where they live. Other future growth is to continue to add primary cares in the western and northern areas of Allegheny County, because as you look at a map, what we have covered is basically the southern and largely the southeastern side of Allegheny County. But if we look anything north of Route 86, we don't have a presence there. Now, the population densities get a lot more sparse, but we have a lot of data that shows what are the populations of those towns, what's the percentage of patients we're serving from those towns, so who is not getting service, and that'll help us to determine where we need to go to raise that quality of life for those communities.
You know where you're going yet, or are you still?
No, still working through all the data. Yeah,
Okay.
still working through all the data. But in our strategic plan, we want to be able to put at least 4 more centers out there. We want to continue to grow our surgical services through recruitment and bringing up specialties from the medical center as well. On the radar is to expand and modernize our emergency room department. That was built in 1993. As you saw by the stats, you're seeing 12 to 13,000 patients go through there a year. Currently, we have 9 beds. The data would show that you should have at least 1 bed per 1,000 patients annually. So that means should really be about a 14-bed emergency room. So we do have a grant application out there to expand and modernize our emergency room, and of course, expanding our sleep lab, amongst other things as well. This is just a short list of many things we're working on. So what does all this mean? What does all this mean? Oh, let me go back one here. Hopefully you can see this. This is what does Jones mean to the county? Is it as a industry here? Not just about building communities, but let's get down to some of the dollars and cents. We have the Haney's, the Healthcare Association in New York State, who is an advocate for all of the hospitals and nursing homes across New York, puts together a economic and community benefits report each year for us. So this is pretty telling when you think about it. Your small, right? Use that in air quotes, I guess. Hospital actually generates over $100 million in economic activity here in Allegheny County. Yes, we have 400 plus employees here, but we create 700 jobs, all because of the support for it. We generate $28 million in payroll that is local to Allegheny and of course our 2 specialty areas in Steuben and Cattaraugus County, which is $12 million in tax revenue. Community benefit and reinvestments out of all that, $7.1 million. The 12,000 patients and everything we've already covered, but you can see the economic impact of having this hospital and why it is so critical to Allegheny County's success. That's why Jones, of course, the patient care is vitally important, and that's part of that one leg of the 3-legged stool, right? The patient care, but even economically, the powerhouse that this organization brings to Allegheny County. But it all comes with challenges as well. Haney's also in 2022, late 2020, fall of 2022, conducted a survey of all the hospitals across New York State, all the hospitals. I will tell you that this data is New York State wide. I will tell you, if I drilled it, and I do have some of this data, I can bring it today. If you were to look at just Western New York, so basically we're on the edge of Western New York, and so everything west of us, right up to Buffalo, all the way down to Jamestown, those areas, these numbers are actually exponential for Western New York, because this includes New York City, which has a little less of a labor problem than we have here. So with the labor constraints, costs go up, travelers and everything else. But a couple of highlights of what they call the critical condition, and this is a public document. We've shared it with a lot of elected officials as well. 49% of hospitals across New York are reporting reducing or eliminating services. And what we're trying to do here at Jones is not take that route, but actually grow our way out of these challenges. But it's pretty, coming out of COVID, because there was there was a loss in a lot of revenue due to when the COVID pandemic came. Believe it or not, it sounds like your hospitals would be bolstering. They're not. That was inpatient services, but because we lost surgeries and everything else, it hurt us economically. And then there was CARES dollars that helped to prop up your healthcare system, but those CARES dollars are now done, and we're still trying to build back from a service line. So 49% of hospitals reporting reduction in services. 100% are reporting nursing shortages. That shouldn't be news for anybody if you pick up a newspaper at any given time. 134% increase in costs for staffing. That number is closer to 180% if you look at Western New York. 64% of hospitals reporting a negative operating margin, with 85% reporting a negative or unsustainable operating margin. So it's an uphill battle for healthcare, even in New York State. And New York State is probably one of the more friendly states to healthcare. So as you can see across the nation, you'll see rural hospitals are closing at alarming rates across the country. Part of our strategic plan is all really key to this is going to be on recruitment. You know, what is our staff? What is our medical? If I go out and recruit a medical staff, even if I get them to come to Jones, I'm always having a challenge of trying to get them to live here in Allegheny County. And here's some of our biggest challenges. I mean, we have great schools in our area, but we need to have, they're always looking for strong schools. They want to see the data that they're strong. Probably one of our biggest ones is housing, not just modern, but available. I mean, I know we've got some great help from Alfred State College in building some very modern houses here in Wellsville, but there's only so many available. And that is a problem. Yes. So what ends up happening is we end up with physicians and their families coming to Jones, but commuting in from Cattaraugus or Steuben County because there's more housing available there.
That's on my list, just so you know.
Oh, I know it is, Greg.
But we're working on that.
It's not the first time you've heard me say it.
But I've got a couple of potentials on that one. So.
That's been really, really tough for us. Matter of fact, the rheumatologist we had coming in struggled actually just to find a home midway between Olean and Hornell, which is just going to be work part-time in Olean.
It's tough for all the large employers.
Yeah. And then, of course, if they're coming here with family members, they're looking for employment opportunities for those family members as well. And they may not be working in healthcare. We've had many come in, they may have finance backgrounds or HR backgrounds and others. So they're looking for those opportunities for that traveling partner to have as well, so that they have a full life. Areas of active recruitment, and this is not an exhaustive list, but some key areas. We're still looking to recruit 2 more OBGYNs. We do have some locums or some temporary staff, for those who are not familiar with the term locum, and OBGYN right now. We're recruiting midwifery, general surgery, rheumatology, even though we just recruited one. We are still looking to recruit another. Always looking for more anesthesia services, emergency medicine, medical oncology, and of course primary care. Primary care being internalists or family medicine as well.
What about nurses? How you doing? I know
well, nurses are we're still hurting. One of our biggest challenges right now is actually in the LPN realm, actually. And it was an industry change of going away from LPNs to RNs. And then with the RN shortage, it became so dramatic and they had to shift back to LPNs, the education systems couldn't produce them fast enough for us. So really working with BOCES and others to try to come up with how do we get more LPNs in the pipeline. I think in Allegheny County, I may be mistaken, but I don't think so, is they're actually graduating 6 LPNs out of BOCES this year. They're more across Cattaraugus, Allegheny County, but Allegheny County specific, I think the number is 6. And that will, I can't sustain 6 with my even retirement and job change, let alone my growth. Every time I talk about a new clinic, you think about every one of those clinics is going to need 2 to 3 LPNs. So I need that feeder from it. And we are working with other partners too, including Alfred State College.
There should be one coming out soon from
pretty excited.
You know that.
chopping at the bit, trust me. We've got great partners as far as RNs go in JCC and Alfred State College and St. Bonaventure. We work very closely with them. And I'm really proud of our nursing management team here, the CNO right down to our nurse managers. We have this year probably the largest recruitment, most successful recruitment years we've had since I can remember. And I believe the number is sitting right now at 14 new general nurses coming into Jones this summer, which doesn't fill all of our holes, but that is a huge shot in the arm.
You've done something right because you've been hiring a lot recently.
Yeah,
We're
last
getting
year,
them, is
last
what
year
I'm
was
saying.
was a bit of a challenge. This year, it was a 2-year effort because the nurses come here and start doing clinical rotations for 2 years.
That helps.
You start talking to them on day one, not as a freshman, not when they're a senior.
Right.
And the team's done a phenomenal job of creating an environment of wanting to be here. Goes back to that vision, right?
Right.
We need those associates who want this to be their choice hospital. We need the medical staff who want this to be their choice hospital, because ultimately that means patients want this to be their choice, choose this as a hospital. So very proud of them. So we still have some shortages. We still will have some shortages, but we're really trying to make some headway on that. Half of those recruitments came from JCC this year, and half of them came from other state
Yeah,
colleges.
you can tell, I mean, you go to the pinning ceremony, there's a lot of them coming here now.
Yeah,
They've
very
done a
excited.
good job, yeah.
Oh, that's Jim. I've got a great team I'm surrounded by, so kudos to all those nurses. So when we talk about recruitment, then, well, how can the community help? We talked about housing and everything else and additional jobs for trailing partners, but really, we try to get the community involved in welcoming physicians and their families to the community, not just once they're recruited, but even during the recruitment phase. We've had a couple community members join us on recruitment dinners now to try to make those immediate connections to the community. We want them to know that not only is Jones a family-focused type organization, but the Allegheny County is family-focused community as well. And I think that helps us, but we need that on a continuous effort. You see a new physician, a new face in town, we need them to get welcomed into those communities. Whether they're living in Wellsville, Alfred, Belmont, doesn't matter. Wherever they are, we need to get them engaged. And assist us in those sort of transition efforts and integrating physicians and their families, whether it be schools, whether it be jobs, and others. We need to be able to help make that transition for them. Along with all of our strategic plan, along with recruitment, comes commercial space. If we're going to open up 4 more sites, that means each one of those will be looking for clinic sites for the future. There's a lot of requirements around those sites, and really what we found that anytime we retro an existing building and build out to make it an Article 28 licensed site, it'll cost us at least 1.5, probably closer to $1.8 million to do a site like Andover. So it's not a decision we go in haphazardly with. If you're going to invest that kind of dollars that we're entrusted with, your dollars really as a community, we're entrusted with that. Is the hospital for the community. We make those decisions very deliberately. But you can see that critical to that is going to be grant opportunities then in philanthropy.
Jim, quick question on, is it more economical to refit a building or to start fresh from new construction?
It really depends on the building. Generally what we've been doing is looking for example, a couple that make it economical examples are our Olean site, which was a commercial retail site. So you start out with basically a large box. Those are very nice to work with because you can do anything you want inside that box. That was a video rental store, in fact. Andover was a great example of another economic use a site that already exists. It was an empty box as a grocery store once we
That was good use there, yeah.
And those work good. If you're going to something like a house or something along those lines, those generally don't work well because you don't have the infrastructure. Trying to repurpose things like past commercial sites usually work best because it may have at least some of the infrastructure that we need. And if you don't have to build all the slabs and the other pieces, parking lots, if those things already exist, those help a lot because those are expensive.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we look at each one differently. We have yet to build one from grass yet. So I'm gonna pause now. I've told you a lot about Jones and what we're doing, and I know I probably went well beyond my allotted time. I'm sorry, but you get me talking about Jones, and I can go on for a very long time. And what can Jones do? I'm always looking for feedback, whether it be from the legislators, whether it be from the IDA. We meet with community groups, like for example the Monday Club. I've met with the Lions in the past. We always want feedback from the community of what do we need to be looking at, what should we be doing. We do formal processes like the community needs assessment that we work with other partners, care for partners across Allegheny County to assess. But really hearing from larger formal groups like this helps us as well. So always looking for your feedback on what we can do to help.
I think all the medium-sized to larger companies are looking for what you just said. You know, obviously, healthcare as well as the education of their students and young adults makes a big difference to attracting people. And the one hole that we're hoping to plug in the near future is the housing piece, the housing stock. We know we're doing a housing study, but I have a couple of developers we're working with because I think that's the biggest missing link in the county right now. It's a great place to live. You know, we have internet access, we have other things going on. And I think what you've done at this hospital is really forward thinking, and I think is really a selling point when we're trying to attract executives and even mid-level people to the area.
Well, anything we can do to further and help that
Yeah.
situation, I'd be glad to be of service.
Jim, I have a question for you. There was a cybersecurity problem for your healthcare payments. That was national or international.
Oh, you're talking about Change Health.
Yeah. Were you affected by that? Was Jones affected by that?
I would be challenged to find a health organization that was not affected by that, actually. They are so big, and it's what they call a clearinghouse. So keeping it very simplistic, basically what it is when we create an electronic claim, it leaves us electronically, goes through this clearinghouse, and there's multiple clearinghouses. Change Health is not the only one, but they were the largest one. So it goes through there, they scrub it, they take a look at that claim and make sure it's a clean claim, it's not missing any data or anything erroneous on it. Because if there is, it put it back to us fixed before it goes to the payer. Yes, that because of that disappeared, we can't go directly from the hospital to the insurance payer. So we had to find another clearinghouse. So that put a damper on our cash flow for quite some time. And we did, thank goodness, this is another one of those benefits of being part of a large system. We've seen this in multiple examples in the past. But when this happened, the University of Rochester, all the hospitals, and Jones is equally at the table, whether it's Strong, Highland, or any of these smaller, equal voice at the table. Our CFO, Boyd Chapman, working with his counterparts, the yeoman's job, and working with what we call the central business office, on finding a way to get a new clearinghouse stood up as quickly as possible so we can get those claims out. It didn't stop healthcare, and it could have, because there's things called pre-authorizations to get some care. We didn't experience an inordinate amount of that, but it did stop the cash flow. So if you had come and gotten care here, that's great, but I couldn't bill for it for months. And of course, I still need to make payroll. So that created a real hardship for all healthcare. But we have started to get over the hump on that. It was very dramatic and scary.
It's not over yet.
It is not over yet.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I'm a frequent flyer of your services up here, and have been for years with myself, my family, and I have a daughter up in maternity right now.
Oh,
Had a little blessed me with another grandson yesterday afternoon,
Oh, wow.
and but
Congratulations.
well, thank you. Since your association with U of R, and also with you coming on board here, Jim, and certainly have stepped up your services here all the way around. And I mean, it's noticeable both to the eye coming in and going, and also on the receiving end of those services on all levels. So I want to commend you and the whole hospital staff for your vision and all your hard work.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a long road, but I'm surrounded by a lot of great people that are really dedicated to this mission. And this really is demonstrated by the new values. The values that you see when you walk through the front door, the We Care, and I won't get into all the details on that, but you can certainly see it on our website, the We Care about. Those were written by our associates here at Jones Memorial. They were not written by Jim Helm sitting in his office. That's important. That's how vested they are in this organization, in you as a community.
Yeah, I would just like to say, Jim really doesn't do anything if you ask him. It's everybody else that does everything. I'm sure that comes from, when he was in, he's not just a veteran, but, he had a very high rank. I don't know, some huge master sergeant or something. But anyway, he's very humble, and he's a leader. when, we did a nationwide search, and there were a lot of people that were maybe on paper more qualified than him, but it was unanimous that he would be our administrator, and he's done a great job. So unbelievable.
Yeah, you picked the right guy.
We've had so many huge problems. He doesn't really talk about them that he just had to work through. It's just unbelievable. Like, I would never be able to do what he's done. I don't think most people would want to. And you can tell he's still excited about it, and he's still, and he really loves Wellsville and Allegheny County. So good job.
Appreciate that, Rich. Thank you for your support.
Can I just make another good job? Because Rich has been on the board for the hospital for how many years, Rich?
Coming up on his ninth anniversary
years.
now. Okay?
And he was chairman of the board during a very crucial time when you were exploring this expansion and looking for grants and all of that. So I know it's really been something that Rich has been close to and it's in his heart. So.
Rich has served as our chair of the board as well. And I've seen the hospital through all the ebbs and flows. And I say 9 years, but it's probably more than that because he was here when we changed the fiscal year end and the board year. So he probably got blessed with an extra 6 months in there somewhere that I snuck in under the wire on him.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Jim? Yeah, this has been fascinating, and I know a little kernel of some of this before because I'm a new member on the Jones board, but it's been fascinating and so educational for us, and looking at it from the business point of view. You are one of the big businesses, the larger businesses in the county, and yeah, we need to make sure that we're paying attention as an economic organization to every type of business.
Yeah, and I think I was probably sharing with Doug earlier. It's great to be a major contributor, but my dream would be to not be the largest. Not that I want to be smaller, but I don't want to be the largest employer, and I'm not. But we don't want to be the largest employer in the county. If your rural hospital is the largest employer, that usually mathematically doesn't work. So that goes back to that one of those three legs. So we do have some great employers in the communities. I'm really excited what's happening with Lundstrom. Super excited about Runnings, not just because they're a great employer and a great retailer in the area, but
it's made a huge difference.
I'm a frequent flyer there. I think if my wife can't find me, she just calls Runnings. But those types of changes around the county are wonderful.
That's probably one of the most visible when it's Runnings.
Yeah, but I'm optimistic for Allegheny County.
Yes.
Always.
We're moving.
Is 49 beds enough for this?
Okay, so
That's a great
question.
A lot.
It is a lot.
It is a lot.
Well, if you think about the pendulum, I talked again about
because of the inpatient.
Because we went from inpatient to treating outpatient. Originally, Jones was 70 beds. We purposely reduced it to 49 beds for designation reasons. It has to do with the rural health clinic designations. Again, a lot of moving parts on that piece, but we don't even staff 49 beds. We actually don't have 49 beds stood up right now. We're licensed to. We could bring beds in and double up rooms and make 49 beds, but we don't do that right now. Right now, we're staffing 28 beds. But the lengths of stay are shorter too. So the goal isn't to keep you here for 7, 8, 9, 12 days. The goal is the appropriate amount of time so you're healthy enough that you don't have to come back. But if you're ill, you don't want to be in the hospital any longer than you have to be. You want to get you to a state that we can then transition the care from inpatient and then transition you to your outpatient team to continue to care for you on the outpatient. I think like Judy was asking, what happens after the discharge? We want to be able to transition that and get you out. So we don't need the bed as long, so you can get more patients through that bed in say the same 2-week period.
I think that's a huge philosophical change too, because people would think, oh, well, I want to be in the hospital to completely recuperate from whatever it is. And now it's when they say, oh, you're only going to be here a day. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm
half
a
day.
little afraid of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, if you think about
Yeah.
who can best care for you in the long term, that's where we need to transition this. And we've put programs in place for that. All of our rural health clinics are covered by what they call care managers. So if you've been discharged from a hospital here, likely a care manager in our end is now calling you right after your discharge the next morning to say, Mr. Helms, do you have your medications? Do you have a ride to get to your next follow-up appointment? What can we do to help you? Do you need food? There's all kinds of things they do on that front to make sure that you transition out appropriately and that you're cared for on the outpatient side.
Well, I
That's
go-
where the care stops, and that's what I think.
Right.
I'll make one more comment, Phil. Okay, so no matter where I go, if anybody's been here, they compliment you on one other thing, and that's your food. And we do at Jones Memorial, everybody says it's the best.
We do have great food, yeah.
Well, Jim, I go over to see Dr. Keith over in Bolivar.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I go over there, there's a PA that comes in from a distance.
He was here as a locum to fill a vacancy, and now that's been permanently filled by Shelby Knapp.
But so beforehand, they
Yeah.
can come in like from Alabama or something?
Yeah, that would be one of those locums we were talking about.
Okay.
So we bring them in if we have a vacancy, but we still need to have patients cared for. We do those on a temporary basis.
Okay.
You know how much your patients rely on public transportation?
Great question.
Good question, right?
They do rely on public transportation. I couldn't tell you, I couldn't sit here and give you an exact scale of how much that is. But when we look at sites, we generally would like them to be on a bus route, for example, because especially as we start to move more and more outside of Wellsville, that's going to be more and more critical because we don't have the population densities. We can keep a clinic busy here with the population just immediately or surrounding it. But if we move to somewhere on the northern side of 86, that may not be the case. So that we would be hoping to have public transportation for them. But if say they're a Medicaid patient, there are other services to be able to get them transportation, and that's a lot with our care managers and our social workers will help line up for them as well. But they do rely on it. The exact scale, I would have a hard time.
And that's another example of the intertwining of all of these factors that produce a successful economic development for the county and
That's why we
Life.
partner with people
Life.
like Ardent
Right.
Health, who helps
Yeah.
manage those types of transportation services.
great.
Thanks, Jim. I like your lapel.
Thanks,
pin,
Jim.
too.
Yeah. I know you're going to be taking us on a tour. We have a very short meeting for the ACUC, which is the utility, and that will probably take maybe 5 minutes.
At best.
Okay. So, but then we would be ready to go on the tour.
So we
with
should
you.
adjourn officially.
Yes, we need to adjourn this meeting. Motion, John Ricky, second, Doug. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I don't think we need a roll call on that, do we?
No.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jim. Yeah, it'll
thanks,
be a
Jim.
short meeting.
Okay.